The Doctor. In the TARDIS. Next stop everywhere.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Charles Skaggs, back in the TARDIS, still hiding out from the coronavirus. Bad coronavirus. Bad 2020. But thankfully, I'm here with my wonderful partner in time, wonderful friend, and acknowledged Bruce Springsteen podcast host, Jesse Jackson. How you doing, Jesse?
I am great, Charles. I am excited to talk about this one. It's always fun, and I'm especially happy that we have our podcast leader joining us.
Yes.
You know, I mean, this is kind of fun.
Yeah, so here at episode 199, if you can believe it, we are going to be talking Destination Nerva, and thankfully joining us is our executive producer of Next Stop Everywhere. I think that's a safe thing to say. Rob Southgate, welcome to Next Stop Everywhere. Hope you survived the experience, sir.
You actually got the lesser Southgate because you had Martha Southgate on recently.
Right.
We did, yes.
You've already peaked, but
yes.
I hope I can hold up my end.
Feel free to send us your psychiatry bills after that experience. So, we will take full responsibility for that. It's all part of our service. Hopefully we haven't traumatized her too much.
Yeah, we need to get Molly joining us, and so we'll complete the set of
Exactly.
Southgate.
Yeah. She actually asked today, she said, why haven't I been on there? I'm like, yeah, well, the one who started Cuckoo for Who, she was the one.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely.
So it's her show. This is her jam.
We'll let her know she's perfectly invited, and we've posted on our Facebook page a list of episodes that are still available, so if she wants to peruse those and see if there's something that catches her eye, or if she has something in mind.
Yeah, we'd love that.
To let us know.
Yeah, I'm going to bet if there's a Matt Smith, she's going to be all about it.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
We still have plenty of great Matt Smith episodes to talk about. But today, though, guys, we are going to be talking Destination Nerva, like I talked about, which is a Big Finish audio adventure, but a very important Big Finish audio adventure because, hey, it's the very first story that Tom Baker did for Big Finish Productions back in, 2012. So this is a big deal. This was something that a lot of classic Who fans like myself have been looking forward to because, we get little things here and there, and we'll talk about that as we discuss the return of the Fourth Doctor later. But this is, definitely a long-awaited return, and I can't wait to talk about it with Jesse and with you, Rob. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I think it's going to be a great discussion. How about you, Jesse? What do you think?
Yeah, as I was listening to this, I really enjoyed the story, and I was curious, and you probably know this, who was the first Doctor to appear on Big Finish Audios? I know you were excited about Tom Baker joining, but who originally broke the mold that we're actually getting one of the Doctors on Big Finish Audio, and now then they've gotten almost everyone?
Well, actually we got 3. We originally started, the Big Finish Doctor Who audio started with a story called The Sirens of Time, which we have talked about here on Next Stop Everywhere, featuring, of course, Peter Davison, my Doctor, Colin Baker, the 6th Doctor, and Sylvester McCoy, the 7th Doctor, to launch, the format for Big Finish, that series of monthly Doctor Who audios.
I remember the episode. It was a good episode.
Yeah, it was. And, it was a great launch for that, and, obviously paved the way for a very successful franchise for Big Finish because, this was a brand new thing for Doctor Who. It brought classic Who back for a lot of older fans and gave some of the doctors the chance to, especially in the case of Colin Baker, the chance to redeem their doctors or develop them further. And just, was obviously very successful to this day. And this is one of the products of that effort. That's going to be great to talk about. So before we get started, before we get into our overview, Rob, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your own personal Doctor Who fandom, if that's all right. Because I'm kind of curious how you got into Doctor Who, and I know you didn't choose this specific story, Destination Nerva, but you did ask me, hey, let's do a Big Finish audio. So what was it about that made you wanted to do a Big Finish audio story as opposed to a traditional TV episode?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, as far as the Big Finish goes, I'm a big audio guy. I love audio drama. I love, obviously, having a podcast network. I love to listen to stuff all the time. I thought this was a unique way to kind of bring that love in, and I was hoping that we would touch on a story I didn't know, which we definitely did. So that's why I chose, doing a Big Finish audio. I thought that was something unique. You had so many things on there that were regular episodes, and I thought people have heard me talk about those to death if they've listened to Doctor Who or to Cuckoo for Who.
Right. Free plug, by the way. Go right ahead and plug that if you want.
Well, you know what? We haven't been producing any episodes, and I don't know if we're going to go back to it. So we loved.
Now I'm sad
doing it. Well, I'll tell you what the problem was. We're so busy and we have so many different projects. Doing episodic TV is really, really hard for the three of us to do. So we may go back and do here's season 12 and just do one overarching episode. But as far as a weekly podcast, I don't know if that's going to come back for us.
Okay, so like a series of specials maybe, perhaps?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe we'll do it at Christmas. So it's our Doctor Who Christmas specials.
Hey, we can always use a Doctor Who Christmas special. Those have been a little sparse of late, as you know.
Yeah, that would always be nice, yes.
Make Jesse happy. He's been feeling a little lost, especially without those Doctor Who Christmas specials on Christmas Day. So
I want that. I need that present.
Well, I will talk to the rest of Cuckoo for Who, and maybe we'll make that happen.
Maybe we could do a crossover. Hey.
Oh, that might be really cool.
Just an idea.
So, but we have to surprise Jesse. So.
Oh yeah. Jesse, forget everything I just said. Just forget everything for the past 3 minutes. Just erase that from your brain. All right.
So, Doctor Who fandom, you asked about that.
Yes, I did. So, yeah, please continue.
So that's going to fold into the other part of this. I was really, really excited when I saw what Big Finish we were going to do because my first Doctor was Tom Baker.
Excellent.
So I'm from Chicago. Or outside of Chicago. But when I was a kid, when Doctor Who first kind of hit the shores here, it was on our PBS station here on Sunday nights. They showed Monty Python, and they followed it with Doctor Who. And I was probably about Molly's age when we started Cuckoo for Who, which I think she was 8, when I started watching it.
So you watched it really young then. Okay, that's interesting.
Really young.
Interesting.
And my parents, I'm an only child, so I was one of those lucky kids that had a TV in his room at about that age.
Same here, raising my hand, yes.
Yeah, and it was giant. I want to say it was like a 12-inch black and white, giant, but that's what was out there. And it was so cool, and there was no cable, so it was whatever it pulled in. So Channel 11, it was like I waited all week because Monty Python was hilarious. And then Doctor Who would come on, and I'm like, what is this? And it's weird. I was thinking about this because I knew I was going to be on. Mm-hmm. I was thinking about how this kind of evolved. I don't think I knew much of the lore,
Right.
I just loved watching it. And I remember...
And you just picked things up along the way, I'm guessing.
Yeah. And I would say around 5th grade or something is when it kind of really caught fire. And I remember I got the hardcover book for The Keys to Time, and it blew my mind because I knew there were other doctors, but this was the first time I saw other doctors. And I read that book going, oh my gosh, what is it? It had pictures and everything. And it's
one of my favorite books, by the way.
It's fabulous, right?
Yeah.
And I would ride my bike there was a 7-Eleven over here. And I don't know, it's maybe a mile from here. But I'd ride with my friends, And they carried a very small selection of comic books. So every time we went, I would work my parents for comic books, but I would ride my bike there, and I remember specifically buying Doctor Who and Star Trek comic books with my friend Chris. We would go, and I'd be like, oh, my God, there's a new Doctor Who, and he didn't know what it was. He didn't care what it was.
Now, you're talking about the Marvel comic series, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it was fantastic. I was... And like I still remember the first one I found there was the one, I don't know if it's issue 1, but it was Tom Baker on the cover. He had the scarf, and the scarf was so big. It looked like he was kind of floating, and the scarf was like the whole
thing. Yeah, the whole splash page, yeah.
Yeah, oh, God. And I was just like, oh, my God, this is the greatest show. And I kept talking about it, and nobody knew what I was talking about.
That's cool.
So that was my fandom. I was really into it. We went to a couple of little sci-fi conventions. That was before they were such a big thing. Mm-hmm. And I remember, like getting a Doctor Who sticker. Like, oh, my God, they have something Doctor Who, because it wasn't really a thing here yet.
That's cool. That's great.
Yeah.
So by any chance, but I'm going to turn this over to Jesse in case he has any questions. But I do have one quick follow-up on this. So do you happen to remember the story that that really hooked you by any chance? No? Okay. I was just kind of curious if there was a
I
specific...
just was fascinated by the whole thing.
Okay, cool. All right. Jesse, do you have anything you want to ask Rob then?
I can say that where I probably got really hooked was when K9 came in.
Okay.
There was something, like, I just thought that was such a cool thing. And it was like this box.
See, Jesse, K9.
I know. I'm the only person in the world that doesn't get K9, except I do now. I've learned my lesson.
It's a box, and it doesn't...
We scold him for this, yes.
Oh,
yes.
But, oh, my God. I remember I think that was the thing that just, when I saw that and went, what is this? Like after you'd seen all the Star Wars robots, then you see this box moving around, and I was so fascinated.
Yeah.
So
something completely different from American sci-fi.
Completely different, and it just completely hooked me.
Yeah. All right, Jesse, you got anything you want to ask Rob? Sorry.
Well, just I was Googling Doctor Who Marvel comics to try to see that cover, and
I could run over here and grab them if you want.
No, that's okay, no, Tom.
I've got them right here.
No. Though I am going, how did I miss the DC Presents Superman meets Doctor Who crossover? So I'm like, how did I not read this as a kid?
Because it never existed, that's why.
Okay, it was just
Wait,
a fake
that's a
cover?
real thing?
It's not a real thing. It's a
fake cover?
It's a fake cover, yeah. People do that. The DC Comics Presents team-ups, yeah, some of those are fake.
Okay.
Yeah, that was like, one that you had me on that one.
Yeah,
no. I was like, I don't remember. Like, how did I not see this?
That's how you didn't see it, because it never existed.
But if you do want a good crossover,
maybe a parallel universe,
There was a Star Trek Doctor Who comic a couple years ago where, I don't know if you read this, where Doctor Who went into Star Trek's dimension.
The Next Generation, yeah.
Yeah, and was chasing the Cybermen. And the Cybermen were bonding with the Borg.
Right. Because essentially the Borg are a ripoff of the Cybermen, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it was it was phenomenal.
I loved that miniseries because they did the Fourth Doctor, and then for the Next Generation, right, they did a more modern Doctor, so it was really fun to do. So, yeah, that's great. So, Charles, I'm always interested.
Yeah.
Like, how excited so, Rob, when the new Doctor is coming back, like, when this is happening, were you excited about it once you heard that, hey, they're bringing back Doctor Who? I mean, what were your thoughts? Because I always think that's fascinating because, my Doctor Who awareness happened, like, we were already in the middle of that. We were almost at the end of Tennant's run before I started watching the series. Yeah,
Jesse's a new Who guy. So he's interested in your classic Who fan perspective, checking into the modern era.
Yeah, I get it. So it's really funny. So I loved Doctor Who. And then I remember watching like Peter Davidson and Colin Baker. After Tom Baker left, I wasn't as into it. Mm-hmm. But I do remember being super excited on the Paul McGann special. I was like, oh, so excited.
Because the show had been off for like 7 years.
Right.
And we had no idea if it was ever going to come back. Yeah.
I would talk to people about Doctor Who, and a lot of people didn't know what I was talking about. Like, they're like, oh, I kind of remember that. I'm like, oh, it's just so cool. And I remember house. In fact, we may have moved into this house at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking about it with some friends, and they said, oh, yeah, my kids love Doctor Who. And I said, really? And they said, yeah, have you seen the new episodes? I was oblivious. I went upstairs, and it happened to be on. Like, I flipped over, and it was on, and it was a David Tennant one, and it was from his first season with David Tennant.
Yeah.
And I watched for about 5 minutes and went, oh, my God. Like, this is incredible. And the effects were so much more elevated and everything. But it was totally Doctor Who. like David Tennant just like it embodied what my brain had constructed for Doctor Who.
Right.
So when you take the two, Jesse, I was totally a Tom Baker guy, loved the whole concept, loved the lore, had the books, was really into it. And then I didn't forget about it. I just wasn't aware, And then I watched in that first season with David Tennant and went, oh my God. And then the way Molly got into it, I'm sure Martha told you her story, but I was laying on the couch. Molly was really young, maybe 5, maybe.
Right.
And I was laying on the couch watching the episode. You're going to know the name. The episode with the cats, where he's jumping from the car to car.
Yeah, Gridlock. We just talked about that last week.
We just talked that last week.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm watching Gridlock.
Perfect synchronicity, right?
And I turn around, like I look behind me because I feel like somebody's right there, and it's Molly with her mouth open and her eyes huge. What's this? I said, oh, hey, this is Doctor Who. I don't know if this is appropriate for you, but yeah, go ahead. And boy, next thing I know, she, like every friend that's coming over, she's playing Doctor Who. She's like, okay, you're River Song, and I'm the Doctor, and you're this. And it was just,
that's adorable.
It sparked it. But getting Martha into it was trickier. I would talk about it, but she was a little more slow to warm up. And Molly was so into it, and she kept saying, Mom, you got to watch it. You got to watch it. And finally, she agreed. She said, but you got to pick the right thing. So we picked Vincent and the Doctor, which is the episode Martha did with you guys.
Exactly.
And we're sitting there watching it. And, of course, Molly and I are like, because we knew the episode. And Martha's got tears streaming down her face.
And you're probably going, like, yes.
Oh, my God. And she's like, I love this. We're like, success. And then we did the show.
Did you guys do a high five or something like that?
Oh, my gosh. And we just were so into it as a family. It was just the best show. But, yeah, Molly started younger than I started. And, yeah. But this happened last year, a couple of years ago. I had a Lock and Key comic. It's sitting in the back seat.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I hear, wow. And I'm like, uh-oh.
Here we go again.
I don't know if you've read Lock and Key, but it is not 10-year.
I've watched the Netflix series, so.
Oh, yeah. Read the comic. It's more adult.
Oh, yeah.
And,
I mean, it's written by Stephen King's son, Joe Hill, so yeah.
Right.
You're right.
Molly, it like exploded her brain. We ended up getting her the box set, and she adapted it into a stage show. And they did a stage of it. And then this last summer, before COVID hit, not this summer, the previous summer,
right?
To I think it was C2E2, and she got to meet Joe Hill.
Oh, that's fantastic!
And when she told him, she said, "I adapted I adapted Lock and Key from the comic book into a live stage reading." He puts his arms up. He goes, "Yes!" Like that.
That's great. That is so cool. Nice.
Did he ask if you had recorded it or?
No. We were afraid he was going to say, "Oh, talk to my lawyers."
Right.
So
yes.
We do have that recorded. It's fun because her whole cast, other than a couple of us, were all kids, and it's pretty rough. She adapted the comic, so like I had to step in because one of the kids got sick or something.
Yeah.
I had to play a character. In the first scene, I walk out and I get hit in the back of the head with an axe, and I'm dead. And then they do a flashback, and I'm like creeping on one of the other girls, but it's like, ew, he's 50, and I'm supposed to be a kid. But it was like we're doing it. I'm going, oh, I tried.
How does this look visually? Yeah.
Oh, it was rough. It was rough. And Martha, after like there were like I think 13 murders in the first 5 minutes of this.
Yeah, exactly.
Now I want to see this. I want to see this now.
She turns to the audience and she goes, The other parents, she goes, I swear I didn't read this. I didn't know what we were getting into.
You need to post this somewhere. I need to view this.
That's awesome. This is great.
I can see if I have a private link I can share.
Yes.
That'd be fun. That's very fun. Good.
All right.
Good.
So we probably should shift a little bit back from Lock and Key to Doctor Who. I don't know.
Yes.
I'm not sure what's a good transition for that, but I'm going to give it my best shot.
Tom Baker.
Tom Baker, exactly. So yeah, we're talking Destination Nerva. Just get a little general overview on this one. Written by Nicholas Briggs, who of course Doctor Who fans, at least modern Who fans, recognize as the voice of the Daleks and other monsters, the Cybermen, and Ice Warriors, etc., etc. Directed by Barnaby Edwards, and this was the first release from Big Finish Productions' Doctor Who: The Fourth Doctor Adventures range in 2012. Starring, of course, the great Tom Baker as the Fourth Doctor, and Louise Jameson as the equally great Leela.
Yes.
So, one of my favorite Doctor companion pairings. And we have a guest cast in this one. Raquel Cassidy as Dr. Alison Foster, who's notable for playing Miranda Cleese in the Matt Smith two-parter, The Rebel Flesh and the Almost People, from Series 6, I believe. She also played Meska in the Fifth Doctor, Big Finish Audio, The Judgment of Iskar, Inquiza in the Sixth Doctor, Big Finish Audio, Paradoxicide, and also played Miss Baxter on Downton Abbey. So if you're a Downton Abbey fan and you recognize Miss Baxter, well, hey, that's she's also on Doctor Who. Tim Bentinck plays Commander Giles Moreau, and he was a monk in the episodes Extremis and The Pyramid at the End of the World from the Peter Capaldi era. And he's also been in various Big Finish audios. He was also on one of my favorite miniseries adaptations, Good Omens, based on the Neil Gaiman Terry Pratchett novel. And he was also on The Crown recently. So I thought that was interesting. Sam Graham plays Henry McMullen, and he was a character named Guthrie in the Sixth Doctor, Big Finish audio called City of Spires. We also had Tilly Gaunt as Laura Krask, who played Olivia Sale and Jancy, another character, in the Sixth Doctor, Big Finish Audio, The Fourth Wall. And that story is notable also for an actor named Kim Wall, who plays Jim Hooley, who played the two characters Chimblee and the head warmonger in that very story, The Fourth Wall. And lastly, we have Tim Treloar as Lord Jack Corrigan, but he's notable to a lot of Big Finish Doctor Who fans because he's now the voice of the Third Doctor, originally played, of course, by John Pertwee, but the role, of course, was recast following Pertwee's death, so that they continued producing Third Doctor audios. So, and he's also been in the movies Maleficent and Doolittle, the Dr. Doolittle story that was done recently by Robert Downey Jr. That one was kind of like in the theaters for like maybe all of 2 weeks and then right back out. So I just thought I'd mention that. Trivia before we get into our main discussion. So although Big Finish Productions has been making audio dramas with all the other living classic series doctors since 1999, we know that Tom Baker has been, shall we say, reluctant to participate. But thankfully, Big Finish finally landed him, even though he had done some BBC audios starting in 2009 within a series called Hornet's Nest, reprising the Fourth Doctor. But those were more narrated stories, where he's essentially the Fourth Doctor narrating the events. So here at long last, we have an actual drama being produced, only albeit in audio form as opposed to a televised medium. And for a lot of Fourth Doctor fans like myself, and I'm sure Rob, it was great to hear Tom Baker, the voice, return once again. And this was, of course, years before he turns up as the curator on the 50th anniversary special, The Day of the Doctor.
Yeah, I did want to mention when I was listening, hearing his voice, mm-hmm. It totally tweaked that 10-year-old. It was Tom Baker.
Yeah.
Like as soon as I heard his voice, I was like, oh, I was teleported back. And that story in particular felt very much out of his era.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I want to talk about, because it does have a lot of, especially early Tom Baker era feel to this. Now, Jesse, you had never heard this story before. Neither had Rob, apparently. So what's your thoughts, Jesse, on, before we get into our topics, do you have any general thoughts you want to share about this story?
So I only got to hear it once.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really like the story. But I'm a little nervous because as we often do in discussion, we have themes and characters.
Yes.
And I'm like, there's the doctor, Leah, the bad guy, and everyone else. Like, so like when you're going to which one is that, Charles? Because like they're all in characters for me. But the story itself felt like a classic Who episode. It was a great story.
Mm-hmm.
When we get to specifics, I'll talk about a couple of moments like, oh, yep, you know what's happening there. Oh, don't do it. Don't do it. Oh, you did it. You're in trouble. And I really, really like this one. And I love the fact that, as we talked about, they do a direct connection to a previous episode, so it sets you in that time period. Like, oh, okay, I knew that. So really, really, I like this one a lot.
Yeah, this one obviously spins directly out of the Talons of Weng Chiang, which is, depending on who you are, either a much beloved story or a much hated story from Tom Baker's era. It's been very controversial of late because of, shall we say, slightly racist things that go on in that story, with a white actor portraying an Asian character, and with the help of makeup. So it's a little awkward to talk about that one, even though we have. But
hey, people still like Breakfast at Tiffany's.
this is true.
No, it's Barefoot in the Park. That's the one with Mickey Rooney.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
But
Yeah. It's not quite that much of a caricature, but yeah. So, Rob, do you have any general thoughts? I know we're going to get into our main topics, but I was just kind of curious what your general reaction was to hearing this for the first time.
I really loved it. I was way into it. I did have some trouble discerning some of the voices, and it was because it was a first pass.
Yeah. Not being familiar with the story, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the story, and I enjoyed. We can get into it, but
yeah.
I enjoyed the villain. I enjoyed how that played out. It was a little different than they do with a lot of the Doctor Who stories, where it's like villain, and then you go, wait a minute, there's some redemption. No,
not this time.
No, this was nasty.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that, and it felt very like of the era sci-fi. Like the early Star Trek has that feel. This felt like that, like those types of writers.
Yeah, I mean, especially from my perspective, this does feel like a lot, like you talked about, being a very classic Tom Baker story. I think in particular because there's a lot of body horror in this one.
Yeah.
Which Baker's era just embraced so much, especially during the Philip Hinchcliffe era. I'm thinking of episodes like The Seeds of Doom or The Ark in Space or what have you. This story, I think, would fit right alongside those in that
totally.
vein. Yeah, because, and it's kind of one of those, like, you almost wish Big Finish Productions would animate this, because I think it would be more effective as a visual story than an audio story.
I totally agree with that. I mean, I do. It was a really great story, and I'm looking forward to breaking it down. But I'm similar to Rob. I had a little bit of trouble connecting who was who, but it didn't take from the story at all, because the story has such good pacing. Take a drink, and really, really a nice through. The storyline was very easy to follow and really enjoyable.
All right, so we've built it up. I think we've kind of hyped it enough. So let's get into our main topic, shall we? All right, so topic number one. Let's talk about the return of the Fourth Doctor and Leela. This is something, like I said, Classic Who fans very eager for. Leela had been in some previous Big Finish stories. She had appeared in the Gallifrey audio series from Big Finish Productions, and she also kind of appeared in the Jago and Lightfoot, two of the characters from the Talons of Weng Chiang, in their own little solo series from 2011. But here we finally got to have Leela as as everybody had wanted. You finally have her paired with the Fourth Doctor once again. And Tom Baker had done some things. He did like the, appearance in the like horrible Children in Need special Dimensions in Time from 1993. He done like the Destiny of the Doctors video game from 1997, and like I talked about the Hornet's Nest for BBC Audio. So yeah, this was such a huge thing. And Rob, I think you're the perfect person to start this off. What was your reaction to hearing? I know you said you were just fell in love. You're taken back by the voice. Yeah. So anything else you want to comment on about that?
Well, as Doctor Who fans, we know that each Doctor has their own personality, even though there are threads.
Yeah.
And this writing and his performance brought me right back to Tom Baker, to the Fourth Doctor. He's not always. It's funny that we love him so much because he's a little jerky at times. He's not. He looks like the big lovable teddy bear doctor, and he is not. And he kind of likes scaring people and being like abrasive.
He could be very brusque and, like you said, abrasive. Yeah, and short-tempered sometimes.
And it was here in this audio, but that doesn't matter. That's I think why I like him so much, because he's so different. And as he said his lines and as he was talking to Leela, I could feel the connection between the characters, which is tough to do, even when you're doing audio versus on camera work. On camera, you can make doughy eyes and go, "Oh, look, we're friends." Audio, it's kind of tough to pull that off, and I really felt the connection between them. And I also agree with what you said, or what Jesse said about it being animated. This one, I could, they've done those animated versions of the Lost episodes.
Yes.
I've thought that the whole time. Every Big Finish I've listened to, I've thought, boy, wouldn't it be cool if somebody went ahead and at some point, as computer animation becomes cheaper, I'm sure somebody's going to do that with these. But start with this one, because this one is absolutely a visual story. Although I saw it in my head, that epidermis stuff was disgusting.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I mean, did it give you that feel from the classic era? Like I was talking about the body horror.
Yes.
Yeah, that just like, oh, I can't believe that this poor guy becoming these creatures, and obviously we're going to talk about the epiderms later, but
when she wanted to save him, and the doctor's like, "Don't, you can't touch him," and then when he dies, and she's like, "You bastard," basically, and he's going, "I'm sorry, you would have died."
Right.
And he doesn't even do that. He's just like, whatever. It's
like, did you want to get infected? You would have been infected otherwise. So yeah,
he's just very matter of fact, which is where he's so, abrasive, which is fine with me. I loved it.
Yeah. And Jesse, how about you? What was your reaction? Because you've seen some Tom Baker stories, and you obviously saw The Day of the Doctor and whatnot. But to hear him, in this audio format, what did you make of that?
Well, what was interesting to me is sometimes when someone comes back to a role, they've been gone from a long time, you can feel a little out of it. For example, as much as I loved the Picard series, I did God, Patrick Stewart looks old. Like, I'm worried about Patrick Stewart's health. Like, he is an old man.
But he was supposed to look that way because his character was dying.
Absolutely. I get that. But I'm just saying it's hard for me to – but since this is an audio, in my mind, I'm seeing the image of these, from the Talons. That episode. You see them in their Victoria-era clothing.
In their prime.
Yeah, in their prime, and he sounds like the Doctor. And
I agree. I saw that hair and everything.
Yeah, the big curly hair, the teeth coming at you.
It was all there.
Yep.
Yeah, and the I like I said, because I only got to hear this once, I didn't get to write down some of quotes, but I did hear, oh, that's a very Doctor quote. Oh, that sounds like the Doctor. And as you talked about, Rob, right, there is sometimes the Doctor can be a little callous. Charles and I've talked about that often on this podcast, where
Some more than others, I think.
yeah, exactly. But as much as we love the Doctor, there at certain circumstances and certain doctors a more matter of fact of nothing you could have done anyway. Let's move on, right? Nothing to see here. Move on.
The kind of detached reaction.
Well said.
Peter
Said,
Capaldi,
Charles.
we're looking in your direction.
Yeah.
Or Colin Baker in a lot of ways.
And I loved their interactions. I loved, I've not seen that many episodes with her as the companion. I liked her a lot in this show. Leela,
Louise Jameson, yeah.
She's, I don't know how they were able to do, but they're able to push that she is from a quote unquote more primitive civilization, yet she still is incredibly intelligent and catches on quickly. And somehow they make that work and they sell that. And as I told you, I may have lost my place a couple of times. I was listening to this like, now, whose voice is this again? Whose voice is it then? But when they're on the screen or in my earbuds, I was captivated the whole time. Charles, how about yourself?
Yeah, you don't, it's hard to, you may confuse some of the supporting characters, but I don't think you really confuse the Fourth Doctor or Leela, for that matter. I think they're very distinctive. And I appreciate Rob showing off his kitty cat.
Yes, joining us
on the camera.
as a special guest.
She was about to knock everything off of my desk. So
yeah, cats have a way to do that. I have one, and my cat Keiko. So I totally understand. That's why I kind of like, okay, you go upstairs. I'm gonna close the door while we do this. So for me, this was heaven. Like I said, this is something that I personally, because I'd been listening to Big Finish audio since Paul McGann returned as the Eighth Doctor in 2001. So by this time, it's been 11 years I've been listening to Big Finish audios, and I was more than ready for Tom Baker to come back, and was not disappointed. Obviously, these first few audios, I don't think this was the one that was recorded first, but I think, obviously it's a great introductory story, or a reintroductory story, rather, to the Fourth Doctor and Leela. Even after all these decades, their chemistry still is electric to me.
Great chemistry. I agree, Charles.
I love the fact that essentially, and it's still, this audio is a great example of this, that Leela, being essentially the sci-fi version of Eliza Doolittle from Pygmalion or My Fair Lady, take your pick. Where you have the Doctor, who is this, alien, very technologically advanced, person from a more of a cultured alien society, the Time Lords, paired off against Leela, like you said, Jesse, a more primitive character, from the tribe of the Seven Team, and not knowing anything about technology or outer space travel, and so you essentially have that the kind of teacher-student relationship here, the mentor, apprentice going into play, and the personalities, just play off so well off each other, because the Doctor, for the most part, is against violence, but Leela is more than willing to do that. She's willing to get her hands dirty. She's ready with her knife at the first sign of trouble, and as a result, the Doctor occasionally has to admonish her for that. But she still, she takes his words. She values his opinions. She talks about how he's this great learned person, this very wise man, and so she respects him, but she's independent enough to not be controlled by him in a lot of ways. And I really love that about her character.
I think your point about My Fair Lady,
Yeah.
is spot on. The moment you said that, a ding, ding, ding went off in my head and go, that's exactly what their relationship is. And especially in this audio drama, there is she surprises him. She admires him, but she also is very strong-willed and is going to do what she needs to do. I think it's cool that she always carries a knife, and I mean, she is her own person. And as many times as we've talked about on the podcast, that we want the best companions are individual characters. They have their own drive, they bring something to the story. They are not just the audience's, surrogate. They are a character in its own. Those are what makes the best companions.
Yep. Rob, anything you'd like to add before we move on?
No, other than, yes, I guess. The My Fair Lady equation there was right on. That's something that I really appreciated about Leela from the beginning, and it came through here, is she is her own person. She is along for the ride. He is kind of mentoring her. There's just there was always something about her that I found really fascinating with their relationship. And I appreciate that it is not she's falling in love with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Even though
which is something the modern era tends to fall on a lot. Yeah.
Right. I think they've navigated that pretty well in the modern era, even though it's bubbling there. But with this, you never had that with Leela. Leela was doing her thing, but she was there as a companion. I love how he interacts with her. It's almost like he's her mentor that's guiding her through this. He's going to teach her, as opposed to we're on this crazy adventure together all the time.
Yeah.
I love that.
I mean,
love it.
They're companions, but they're also friends. But
yes,
what I think makes Leela different from most of the other companions is that Leela also serves as the Doctor's protector in a lot of ways, his bodyguard, if you will.
Yeah, she's got that knife at the ready.
And she's, someone who can handle herself in a fight, as opposed to just someone that the Doctor constantly has to save.
Right.
And, in a lot of ways, the Doctor can trust Leela that she can get herself out of certain situations.
Yeah.
And, as a result, I think is more willing to allow her to act more independently because of that than he might other companions.
Sure. I agree with that completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had not thought of that, but you're right. She is almost like a bodyguard, right? That she's there to provide a little bit of muscle because the Doctor doesn't want to be bothered. So that's very cool.
Yeah. Again, almost in the sense that he's the brain, she's the brawn.
Yes,
a little
absolutely.
bit. And the beauty as well. So, all right.
You're saying Tom Baker's not the beauty?
Well, whatever floats your boat. I'm not I'm not
you mentioned those teeth earlier. So.
Exactly. If you're someone with a more kind of a dental fixation, I'm not here to judge. If that's your fetish, that's cool.
Go for it.
I'm a progressive guy. I'm willing to, go for it if you want. So unless everybody has anything else, let's move on. Topic number 2. So let's talk about the Chandler crew a little bit. I know, Jesse, you talked about how a lot of these were, kind of tough to distinguish in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but I'm not going to.
But I thought Dr. Alison Foster at least kind of stood out. And then we have Commander Moreau, who falls victim to becoming, an epiderm in a lot of ways. Hooley, this kind of union guy who is a bit obnoxious. So I didn't know if you had any thoughts about those.
Well, in general terms, I love the idea that they're part of the problem, that why they got into trouble is they're having communication problems, right? And everyone's like, dang it, I wish this thing would work. Why is it not? And, they break protocol. This stranger shows up and has a slick tale, right? Like, oh, I'm here, I'm fine, how are you doing? And she does what's right. She calls and checks on them, but then because of the communication, she ends up, I can't wait. Come on in. And I was like, bad idea, bad idea, bad idea. And then when
you've seen that movie.
Yeah, I've seen that movie, Charles. And then when, this isn't a criticism, because I think with an audio drama, you need to kind of almost like in the Roadrunner cartoon where you have an arrow pointing, at like the thing. I just want to shake your hand, and you're like, don't do it. I just love that twist and how they subtly showed her where all of a sudden she's very susceptible and very, just like whatever you need to do. So I really I pulled for even though I didn't know who they were necessarily name wise, I pulled for the crew and I was worried about them.
Yeah, our crew of expendables, shall we say? Yeah.
Yes, unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, Rob, how about you? Any thoughts about the Chandler crew? Yeah, especially like maybe Dr. Foster, who was a little bit more notable than the others.
It reminded me of, and this is especially a Doctor Who thing, when you think about the crews of various episodes, with dinosaurs on a spaceship, or even like the Christmas one with Nick Frost, where they've got this crew that's in this area. They kind of do this same thing, and it felt very much like that, where it's like, okay, they're not cookie cutter. They give them just enough personality that you go, oh, I know who that is. But when you can't get the visual, it was a little harder to grip onto those.
Yeah, yes. I think you're right. It's harder to feel sympathetic for a character when you can't quite appreciate them as a person.
Yeah. They're
especially
a little bit better than a red
especially
shirt.
Like, it's hard for like, oh, I'm sorry, I felt horrible, but it's tragic that they died, but I didn't really feel much because I didn't really get to know this person as a person.
Yeah, when you compare them to like a red shirt, the red shirts, they might get one or two lines where you're supposed to build sympathy for them, but really, this guy's toast. I don't really care.
Yeah.
With these, there was more than that, but I didn't walk away remembering character names or anything because I kind of knew a lot of these guys are going to get cooked.
Yeah.
I did really like Dr. Foster. I thought was a great character, and they
seem to try to give her at least some depth. With a photo of her child, and and then that whole backstory that the child only lived for 7 days. Yeah.
There was more going on there, and as the story played out, she was your character you could grip onto. That they always need that with Doctor Who also. It can't just be the Doctor and the companion. There's got to be somebody that the stakes are high and that you're invested in. She was the one. Right. Even though I did enjoy, like, I can't think of their names, but the guy that had the when she was standing there in the epiderma, whatever, took him over. The scene we were talking about earlier, where it was like, don't touch him.
Yeah.
And she was saying, no, I need to save him. I don't remember who he was, but I knew it in the moment. I knew who he was in the moment because of the earlier scene, and I knew that she was going to be essentially our final girl as soon as she entered that scene.
Okay.
So
you kind of get, because of your experience with Doctor Who, Classic Who especially, you kind of knew how this was going to play out.
I did, even though that is not a criticism.
Yeah.
I think they do it well.
I'm right there
and
with you, Rob. Yeah, it was really well done.
It was a great story. I walked away from it going, man, I am so glad I listened to this, and it's in the headcanon now. That's for sure.
That's good. So one of the things I thought was interesting about this, about the crew, is a lot of them suffer this horrible fate, but in a very un-Doctor Who-like twist, they get their conditions reversed at the end of this story. Because of
that was interesting.
Traditionally, well, too bad, so sad. They met their fate. Let's just move on to the next story, and you kind of forget about them. But at the end, there's a cure, and
Yeah.
and they get restored. So I thought that was kind of interesting that, except for, Lord Jack and the others, who we'll talk about here in a minute. But I thought that was a surprising twist to me in this story.
Yeah, me as well.
Yeah, I agree, Charles, because you always have
You figure
the
that's
doctor
it.
leaves. Yeah, the doctor always leaves people in his wake, and the argument is that he didn't cause that, but it is part of the consequences of being around very dangerous people. So I kind of like that. It was a little surprise, like, oh, okay, they kind of fixed things up a little bit, not for everyone, but enough that it was well done.
Yeah. All right. All right. Anything? If we don't have anything else, let's move on to our third and final topic. Let's talk about Lord Jack and the epiderms and the Drellerins. So, Rob, you had talked about you were really looking forward to talking about our villain, Lord Jack,
Yeah.
who's was apparently a bit ambitious for the Empire, the British Empire, and basically took it to a whole nother level in the story, as we find out. So, why don't we start with you and share your thoughts, if you would, about this story's big bad.
Well, first of all, Lord Jack was a great villain. And I think that the actor portrayal of Lord Jack was great for audio because the way he delivered it,
Yeah.
you knew he was the big bad. And that charming thing that he would do
Tim Treloar,
was completely creepy. I really loved it. And this is one of the few characters, and it's funny that it was on this, that reminds me of a Master, where it's like this character, this Lord Jack, I could see being a thorn in the Doctor's side. A
potential recurring villain.
Yes, and he's nuts, and he's, like you said, very ambitious, but man, he's loyal to his British Empire. I just really enjoyed what he was doing, how he was doing it. I bought it. I bought that he was nuts. I bought that he was nuts the way the Master is nuts, where you go, they're nuts, but from their standpoint, they're not nuts. Yeah. It's not the Joker. I'm here to cause mayhem. It's I am doing the right thing, 100% the right thing. I'm going about it the right way. No, you're not.
Well, I think maybe for his time period, because he was essentially this 19th century British lord who
it makes sense.
It makes sense because the empire was the British Empire was the British Empire at the time. And
think about what they were conquering at the time.
Yeah, because
he's like, I'm going to space.
Yeah, exactly. Because they had conquered India, they kind of conquered all other places, and so his intention was just like, well, hey, we got to grow the empire, right? I'm not going to call it Space Force, but that's what he was trying to do. I know that's a whole nother attempted empire. Yes,
right.
Yeah, that we could spend a whole nother podcast on that one. Because but his ambition, I think, was natural for his character.
Yes,
but as a result, he ends up subjugating the Drellerins, as we find out, who were apparently this very peaceful race.
I loved them too. I thought they were
right.
Great, and I love how when they first appear, it's like you get the impression they're very intimidating.
Yeah, they're
not to the Doctor,
big hulking things, talking really deep, and they're probably looking like big.
That voice was great, wasn't it?
Yeah, big monsters. Yeah, exactly.
The Doctor wasn't intimidated, but everyone else in the room, it felt like the air got sucked out of the room when they started talking. But I love that they were just like, nope, we're not violent. They didn't like Leela pulling the knife. Like, I thought that was so great. Once again, classic Who. It really felt like, a lot of sci-fi, especially the TV sci-fi, the characters are one dimension. Good guy, bad guy. Black hat, white hat. That's
right.
it. And Doctor Who has never made that their thing. Yes, they've had black hat, white hat, but most of the time it's gray hat. And it's cool that this is a race that is evolved to the point that's peaceful, yet
Yes.
intimidating, and not going to take it from Lord Jack. I mean, like, I loved that. I thought that was very cool.
I love that it kind of played on your, on misconceptions a little bit, because you figure, well, this huge hulking brutish sounding race, well, they have to be the aggressor, right?
Right.
But ultimately we find out, well, hey, they're pacifists.
And that voice was just great. I mean, I thought it. When I heard that voice, I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah. So I think it totally played against your expectations of this race. Jesse, how about you? Any thoughts about our Drellerins?
Yeah,
or
I'm
Lord
shaking
Jack?
my head with everything you guys said. I do agree. There was that.
Well, that doesn't really make good audio.
wonderful-
Just saying, shaking your head. But
I know.
Okay.
The voice, as you said, the sound of them compared to what they actually acted like. Jack is a great villain for all the reasons you guys mentioned. I love as he's just kind of walking through the station, going around, trying to infect everyone, working toward making, he has his plan. He knows what he wants. In his mind, this is the right thing to do, as you guys talked about. So that was really interesting. I like that the Doctor and Leela, figure that out. They know what's going on, and I didn't write it down, Charles, but it may have been one of you're always good about lines, but when they think they're in a bad place and the Doctor's like, oh, I found spaceships, spacesuits, we're going to be okay. It was just a really nice, as I said, this was a wonderful villain, and that our heroes were able to defeat. And we've often talked about we would love to see characters come back. I agree with you, Rob. This would have been, kind of their own version of somebody that we would hate, like who hiss. We'd love to see return, to fight the Doctor another time.
Yeah. I mean, the epiderms, I thought, were an interesting idea. The idea of, they kind of live up to their name because, epidermis, that's, your skin, right? So essentially these monsters come from your skin and develop into these, this almost kind of like a gestalt creature that essentially, wants to assimilate everything into itself.
Yeah, and it sounded gross, too.
Yeah, it did.
I mean, on top of all that, it just sounded gross, which was fun.
Right, and especially for an audio, it really stirs the imagination, which makes, for a better audio play, in my opinion. Especially better Doctor Who, something that you can almost picture in your head without actually seeing it, which is great. Jesse?
Right, the creepy factor is there.
Yeah.
Even though audio, you're kind of like, ooh, and so that was kind of nice. I also, just on a kind of a general thing as a topic, this is quick, fast, and in a hurry. Like we don't waste a lot of time. This is a really good story. You had said that when you said when we talked about it last week. You're like, this is a pretty short episode as far as Big Finish audios, but I don't feel like it was rushed. I feel like it was just quote unquote the good stuff,
right.
Like the good parts. It was just a really nice, great classic Who story with the Doctor and the companion saving the day.
Well, you shouldn't really have problems with the pacing in this one because essentially it's just a 45-minute story. Most classic Doctor Who's, generally an hour and a half for,
right.
4 23-minute episodes. And so, this is essentially half of that. So this is essentially the equivalent, I think, of a modern era story.
But it's a modern era story.
At least a modern era format, if nothing else.
Well, right, it is.
Which is probably why we don't get to know the supporting characters as well.
Exactly.
Because there's no time to really dive deep into them.
But it's like a cover band doing it's like a a 60s or 70s band doing a new song, with new instruments and stuff. So, I mean, it feels like Tom Baker. It feels like a Fourth Doctor episode, yet it has the format of modern Who, and it's a mashup that really works. I think it's really this may not have been the first one they recorded, but I think they were smart that this would have been the first one. They want to go
the first release.
Hey, yeah, this is what we've got. Let me give you a taste of what we're bringing you. And I can only imagine that fans hungry to see Tom Baker as a Doctor again flocked to this and was like, okay, yeah, this is my Doctor.
Yeah, this
is Tom Baker. This is Doctor Who.
All right. Any other thoughts about this episode, about this story, guys?
No, I think I just really enjoyed it.
All right.
It made me want to dive into more Big Finish audio this week.
Well, that's always a good thing.
Yes.
I always support that. That's for sure. So, and I'm still waiting for Big Finish to, kind of start sending us sample audios, give us a little return here for all the free plugs we give them, because I think we're due.
If they could just send us some samples, we're open.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Have you guys ever reached out to them?
Well, talking, here and there, responding on Twitter,
Maybe
Facebook.
We'll reach out.
Yeah.
They should. I know that they like it when we tweet things about them and share stuff on social.
We do get responses, like when we post things on Facebook, they do respond occasionally saying, thanks for sharing our links or whatnot. So, hey, I'm just saying maybe a little something for the effort, guys.
You've challenged me now, Rob, so I'm going to make a note that, yes, we should send an email. Hey, we do it routinely. If you wanted to get us on a mailing list, we would appreciate it.
Or, hey, you want us to review one of your upcoming audios and get the word out.
Yes.
Hey.
Actually, you guys are such fans. Big Finish should sponsor Next Stop Everywhere.
Well, there you go.
Boy,
that would
be
fantastic if they did that.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, that's ideas, brainstorming.
Right.
This is good. All right. Anybody have favorite quotes? Jesse, you said you didn't have favorite quotes this time. Rob, do you have any favorite quotes that you noticed?
I didn't write any down, but I guess "Don't touch it" would be.
Yeah. I've got that one. Yeah.
And I really did love that scene when he was like, "Nope, don't. Nope." I loved that.
He did he talked about humans being one of his favorite species, and I always like it when the Doctor acknowledges, puts a lantern on. Why do we spend so much time with Earth and humans? Well, because it's one of his favorite species, not because this is a TV show that's filmed in Earth. And I just like him when he hangs that lantern on it to kind of acknowledge that.
Yeah. All right.
I also did like when the alien had the realization, oh, you're not human. I thought that was a nice little touch too.
Yeah. It's a little surprise that, oh, wait.
Yeah.
You look like a human, but...
Yeah, they just kind of took him aback, and it was just a nice little moment in there.
Yeah, that was a good moment. So I've got a few quotes I can share. I wrote them down. So I've got Leela asking the Doctor why they've landed on Nerva Station. Nerva Dock at this point. So Leela asks, so why have we landed here? And the Doctor replies, well, if I can find out where here is, I might be able to calculate our relative position by cross-referencing our current coordinates with where we were. And Leela replies, that does not make sense. And the Doctor counters with that, saying, yes, that's often a mark of a good theory, I find. And Leela counters to that, I do not believe you believe that, Doctor. So I thought that was adorable.
Very Doctor Who, also.
Yeah. So, and I've got the full thing of that "don't touch it" thing you were talking about, Rob, where the Doctor says, "Don't touch it. How many more times do I have to tell you, Doctor?" And I love the way he emphasizes "Doctor," knowing that she should know better, right? And Dr. Foster replies, "As many times as it takes to make sense of this." And the Doctor replies, "Sense? None of it makes sense. But isn't it clear? It's deadly. I work out the sense bit later." So I thought that was
very
good.
nice.
That was good.
Yeah, very good.
And Dr. Foster talking about seeing one of the transformations into the epiderm, saying, "Oh, this is really, really disgusting." And the Doctor replies to that, "It's at times like this when I always regret never having taken up the cello."
I forgot that one. That was an excellent one.
Yeah, that was a great one. All right. So what's everybody's ratings for this one? Rob, let's start with you on this one. What was your rating?
How do you guys do your ratings?
We do our 10 scale with something like a object that relates to the story a little bit. You know, like for example, like for, say, blank out of 10 TARDIS consoles.
Well, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 epidermas.
There you go. I think that's fair. Jesse, how
I
about
wanted to
you?
give canines, but he didn't make an appearance here.
Yeah, he's in some other audio, so don't worry. So that gives you the incentive to keep listening, Rob.
Yes.
So I don't want to steal yours, Charles. So do you want to go first?
Well, I was going to say I'm going to give this one 8 out of 10 security drudgers.
Okay, so I wouldn't have stolen yours.
I do like that.
Yeah, I did. I give it 8 out of 10 butlers named Butler.
There you go. That was another great line.
Good.
Yes.
That was another great line, yeah.
It was a very great line. I also like the
So
fact
we're all 8 out of 10 on this one, I think. Yeah, all in sync.
I did a Google search because I had never heard matches called Lucifers. And I thought that was interesting when he says that he used the Lucifer that was given to him by someone. And so
That might have been a brand. I'm not sure.
I Googled it, and it does look like it is that in the England they would call that, and I do think it was.
So it's slang, not a brand name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I learned something today, which
There
is
we
always
go.
good. The more you know. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yes.
So reverse the polarity this time. If you like this story, I definitely recommend going back, way, way back, to 1975 with The Ark in Space, the second serial of season 12 in 1975, written by the late great Robert Holmes. And in this one, the TARDIS materializes on Space Station Nerva. So essentially, when the Doctor was talking about, well, hey, I've been here before, only that's far in the future. That's what he's referring to.
Oh, very cool.
So, which also makes an appearance in 3 stories from this one in Revenge of the Cybermen as well. But in this one, he's in the year 16,087, and we have the Fourth Doctor and Harry Sullivan exploring. Sarah Jane Smith is transported away and placed into cryonic suspension by a station computer. And Harry and the Doctor realize that the station is a kind of ark. Well, hey, like an ark in space, right? And Harry searches for a resuscitation unit for Sarah, but discovers a mummified alien insect instead. And that leads us down a whole rabbit hole where you've got a crew that's revived from suspended animation, but, kind of like the movie Alien, someone's been infected and spreads that infection. So you have, just like in this story, you've got a lot of body horror going on where you've got expendable crewmen becoming alien Weirin. And obviously, the Doctor and Harry and Sarah help to battle against the Weirin and ultimately help, unlike this story, the crew doesn't come back magically at the end. But the Doctor and company help to get rid of the swarm and help prepare the Ark colonists to repopulate the Earth at the end of the story. So great, great classic Who story. This is only Tom Baker's second story at this point, but I think a lot of classic Who fans would regard this as a bit of a classic, and definitely recommend it if you enjoyed Destination Nerva. So check it out.
Very nice.
All right.
Yeah.
So we only have one person writing in this time for listener feedback, but someone who's obviously very loyal to Next Stop Everywhere, David K. Proctor, as we know him now, Dave, who writes in about Destination Nerva. Dave writes in and says, I haven't listened to very many Big Finish audio plays. I like the concept. It was good to hear my Doctor in an adventure I hadn't heard before. There's a timey-wimey feature, too. The voice of old people acting as young people in 2020 or so, using an art form from the 1930s. What could be more Doctor Who? I felt that the story was okay. One might think it is a good starting point, and perhaps the shows get better as you go along. I'm not trying to insult the show, but it wasn't awesome. However, it was good, and I enjoyed it. I give it 6 epiderms. And so David K. Proctor says, thanks. And then he writes in with a P.S. So he wrote in this completely separate email because that apparently wasn't enough. Writes in saying, by the way, I bought the Big Finish audio of Destination Nerva. It wasn't super expensive, but for the length of recording, I get a bigger bang for my buck on different formats. Big Finish this morning has Destination Nerva Part 1 for free. Yeah, which I thought was a great little bit of serendipity on our part.
Yes, it was. Yes.
Because Big Finish does these little weekly freebies. And it just so happened this week they gave Part 1 Destination Nerva. So there you go. You don't have any excuses for not checking it out. And David signs off saying, they are really enjoyable, and now I'm probably hooked. Thanks, David K. Proctor. So we got him.
Yay,
Yes.
Hey, can I give a pro tip right here that I haven't heard mentioned?
Yeah.
Sure.
A lot of these Big Finish are free on Spotify. I went and listened on Spotify. It had the whole thing, and it had interviews at the end about this episode.
Nice.
So, yeah, there's a lot of material there. I know there's a hell of a lot more out there.
Yes.
But this one happened to be on Spotify, and I was able to listen to the entire program. It was great.
There you go. So
very good. Yeah, nice.
There's a way to do a discount. Jesse had the Charles discount because
yes, he did.
I already had the CD, so I just kind of made a little
lent it to me. Yes,
copy for review purposes, shall we?
Absolutely. Yes.
So just sharing that out, putting that out there. All right. So if you want to be like Dave, and please do, we'd love to hear from you here at Next Stop Everywhere. So drop us a line at Next Stop Everywhere SMG for hey, Southgate Media Group. That sounds catchy, right? Next Stop Everywhere SMG at gmail.com, or you can reach out to us on the Twitter machine at Next Stop SMG on Twitter, or Facebook, of course, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, or we're on Instagram at Next Stop Everywhere podcast. And Rob, let's start with you. Where can they find your fine work, sir, as the executive producer of Next Stop Everywhere?
Oh, man. Well, I mean, if you want to hear me podcast, I'm always on a bunch of shows. Right now, my two biggest that I'm personally doing are Alley Chats. I started the show right when the virus hit because I wanted to help my friends that are artists and writers. And I said,
that's great.
Let's have them on and we'll treat it kind of like an online artist alley, and I'll let them plug their wares and talk to them about their stories. I love it. I've met so many great people. I had a bunch of people from 2000 AD on. I had Kevin Scott on, who's written for Big Finish. That's had all sorts of really fun people. And then I also have one called Go Fund This that I took over. It was another show that Matt was doing, and he kind of let it sit for a while. And I thought, you know what? A lot of people are trying to kickstart or Indiegogo their stuff right now. Once again, virus. You're sitting here at home. And I thought, how can I help them out? So I took over Go Fund This, and I put up new episodes pretty regularly. In fact, I recorded one today that should hit tomorrow.
Great timing.
Yeah. The thing right now, I mean, I produce so many shows on here. I'm executive producer on over 100 shows under our moniker, and we have a bunch of new things coming. I can't talk about, but really fun.
Nothing
cool
you can
stuff.
tease? Give us a little exclusive, maybe?
Well, you know what? The one I want to talk about is Martha's show. I don't know if she was able to talk about it on here, but she does Broken to Brave, which is her.
She did.
It's a very personal story. I am on the Patreon show she does.
Okay.
So she releases these episodes, which are essentially the Broken to Brave story, and every week we put 2 of them out. But then we also, on her Patreon page, put out 2 extra shows, and each of those, the regular show is only like 6 minutes long. The one that I'm on with her is typically an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, and it's a real glimpse into not only our relationship, but the story of how this all happened. We get into stuff where we both cried on the show. We've also laughed on the show a lot. It's really, when I listen to it, it's the best thing I've ever done. And I'm just so proud of her and what we've produced. It took 7 years of Southgate Media Group to get to this point. So that's what's going. As far as new stuff, no, I'm not telling you. But there is some the only thing I'll tell you is we are working on some audio drama stuff that will be, we're going to knock it out of the park. If this all goes together, we have some, I wish I could talk about them. Really, really cool stuff. And then some new shows that people have been pitching us. And, Jesse, as you know, because, Jesse, you're the king of, I'm going to pitch a show to Rob. Jesse, you're already in the network. You don't have to pitch a show. Just send us the thing and we'll make a show.
Yeah.
we've got people that are doing that again, and we weren't thinking about growing, but now we're starting to really grow. Molly has 2 new shows. My daughter, Read Between the Lines. She interviews authors. She's been getting, like, she had John Scalzi and Daniel Krauss. She's getting big name people.
That's fantastic.
Oh my gosh, you should. Daniel Krauss requested her a second time. And he's the one that wrote Shape of Water.
Yeah.
If you know.
Yeah, it's a great film by Guillermo del Toro. Yeah.
Right. And he's written, his books are really great. So, yeah, she's got that show going. So if you like authors and you want some really cool stuff, check out Read Between the Lines. And then the other one she has is one she does with her friend Tabby, which is called The First Six, where they watch the first 6 episodes of a show, and then they're out. And they kind of tell you, here's what our impression was. And it's funny because I have to edit that show, and I have to edit so much that I kind of go on autopilot. I listen to every word they say, and I'm sitting there going, I can't believe I'm listening to 2 13-year-olds, and I'm completely captivated. And now I want to watch this show because they did a review of Batwoman that I loved this episode. I was like, why am I loving this so much? I would subscribe to this if I didn't know them. And I would never know they're 13, but they are.
And that's the sign of a great show.
Oh, it's great. It's great. So she's eclipsing me, but I'm good with that.
Well, a parent should want their child to, exceed what they have done.
We've always said that as owners of the network. From day one, we always said we want to be the ones that launch 1,000 ships. We would love it if people that came and did this for us, they did a season or 2 and then they went, I want to start my own network. Great. Just as long as we can be cool on your way out, we're cool. And we'll support you and build you up. We want everyone to surpass us. We just want to help you get it going. And Molly is definitely surpassing us in a lot of ways, which is great. I'll take it.
That's fantastic. Well, my congratulations to Molly on all her endeavors, and can't wait to hear more, guys. So everybody, you need to check these out. You need to check out all these great podcasts, and if nothing else, go to SouthgateMediaGroup.com.
Yes.
Where you can learn
I'm
more
working
about
on the website right now.
Yeah.
In fact, I was working on it all day, so it's going to be new and improved.
Okay.
And follow us on Twitter at SMG Pods. Follow us on Facebook, just look up Southgate Media Group, and you'll get all the shows on there. And, definitely.
All right, everybody. No excuses. Just saying. I'm calling you out. All right.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Jesse, how about you? Where can they reach you?
Well, you can hear Charles and I. We think we're going to work on an every other week schedule on the Fandom Zone podcast. We just did an episode where we discussed the first season of Umbrella Academy. We kind of did a quick overview of the characters and the themes of the first episode. I think it came out really well, and I got good feedback on it from a couple people. And then the other thing I have to give kind of a part of is a feedback and also kind of to promote. Charles was just a guest on Set Listing Bruce, the Bruce Springsteen podcast that I'm hitting my 5th year anniversary. By the way, the episode that came out on Tuesday featured Rob interviewing me. I re-pushed out the very first episode we had, and Rob and I talked about that. Yes, I reissued that episode where you interviewed me. But on Friday, Charles joined me, and we picked what 5 concerts we were, and David K. Proctor sent email to me giving feedback on that episode, which I thought was perfect. I really was nice to see that. And so I'm doing an episode every weekday.
He also sent us feedback on Phantom Zone there about which stories we need to be covering too.
Yes, he did. Yeah, I love that. Anyway, so I'm doing an episode every weekday for the month of September on Set Listing Bruce. And as you guys were kind enough to mention, Backstreets.com, which is the biggest Springsteen fandom website, did a nice article of the 5th anniversary of Set Listing Bruce, and I've already got like 5 or 6 people reaching out to me that want to be on the show, so that's really, really good.
Congratulations, Jesse. And
congratulations, Jesse.
Yeah. And I'll try not to go into a Backstreet Boys song.
Yes.
After hearing that.
Yes, Backstreets is a famous Springsteen song. Now, Charles.
Yes.
I have done my homework, So I have sent my feedback in on one of your podcasts. So tell us, when you're not talking to me, what else are you doing on this fine network?
Well, when am I not talking to you, sir? All right. So as for me, of course, at Charles Skaggs on the Twitter machine, at Charles Skaggs on Instagram, Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio, and my blog of geeky things. Wait for the sound effects.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot. We're talking about all the stuff we talk about here on Next Stop Everywhere. Your Doctor Who, your Torchwood, your Sarah Jane adventures, all kinds of comic book sci-fi goodness, news of my other podcasts for the Southgate Media Group, including the aforementioned Fandom Zone podcast, where Jesse and I, like you said, just talked the Umbrella Academy Season 1. We've had some requests to do other stuff, so maybe we'll be doing that here shortly. We're still deciding that. Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, where DJ Nick and I recently finished up Doom Patrol Season 2. And with Titans and Doom Patrol currently on hiatus, the podcast will probably be on hiatus for a little while, although I'm hoping we'll get some news out of DC Fandom this Saturday and get a better idea of maybe when we'll find out when we're going to get Titans Season 3. So fingers crossed for that. And then Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast that I do with Zan Sprouse, whom, of course, you've heard here on Next Stop Everywhere, and will again very, very soon. As right now, we talk, of course, Twin Peaks and David Lynch. And right now, we're about to be recording the third of our 6-part series of episodes where Twin Peaks actors that have appeared on the X-Files.
Oh, yeah. We've been loving that series.
Yeah, that's been it's been great. David Duchovny, of course, a Twin Peaks actor who played Special Agent Denise Bryson on Twin Peaks. Now, of course, ends up becoming Fox Mulder, Special Agent Fox Mulder. So this time we're going to be talking about Michael Horse, who, of course, played Deputy Chief Hawk on Twin Peaks and turns up in the episode Shapes from the first season of the X-Files. So that's what we're going to be discussing tomorrow. And that should be out later this week, so I hope everybody checks that out. And we've gotten a lot of great feedback on our X-Files little retrospective. And like I said, we still have 3 more to go after this one, so I hope everybody checks us out on Ghostwood the Twin Peaks podcast. It's been a lot of fun. And, of course, well, hey, next time on Next Stop Everywhere, episode 200 of Next Stop Everywhere.
Yay!
Boom, drops the mic. So, and there was much rejoicing. Hooray! So, episode 200, been a little mysterious about what we're going to talk about and who's going to be appearing. So, right now, I think is a great time to finally reveal that episode 200, we're getting the band back together. If you listen to our episode 150, where we discussed the Stolen Earth Journey's End, here at episode 200, we're going to be talking the Pandorica Opens and the Big Bang.
Wow.
The 2-part Series 5 finale from the Matt Smith era with yours truly, because, hey, there's no way I'm going to do 199 episodes of Next Stop Everywhere and not do episode 200.
Yes.
Along with my fellow partner in time, Jesse Jackson.
Yes,
Yay.
indeed. I'm in.
And special guest companions joining us once again. We're getting the band back together, like I said. So we have Zan Sprouse, my wonderful Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast co-host with the most. DJ Nick, my fellow Titan talker, going to be returning. John Takis, one of our favorite special guest companions. So get your research ready for John, because John loves to do his homework, and we love it when John does his homework. And, of course, Christine Peruski, last but not least, who I'm sure will have 1 or 2 thoughts on our rating system once again. But we love Christine, and we're so glad that she and all the others are going to be joining us once again for this very, very special episode. Fingers crossed that the bandwidth holds up.
Yeah, that is a lot of people.
And we're obviously going to probably have to go without cameras. But, Jesse, are you excited? Because I know I'm excited about this.
I'm very excited, and I'm mostly happy because I love talking to all these people. And I always love Charles being ringleader and traffic cop when it's this many people. And
I think I do okay with the moderating. Not too bad.
I think you do. I think you do a great job. So, yes, this will be a lot of fun. Though with 3, we went an hour and 40 minutes. I don't want to think how long this. We may have to do this in 2 parts.
Well, we did kind of talk, about 10 minutes about other stuff off the air.
Yes,
before we
did.
get started. And we should wrap this up, but I did want to kind of break the news here on Next Stop Everywhere. A little bonus for everybody that was patient enough to listen to us to the very end. Rob, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you had a good time, sir.
Thank you for having me on. I had a great time.
I apologize for, being way too long to have you on our podcast, but I'm so glad you agreed to join us, and you brought a lot to the table as always, and I really appreciate you joining us here.
Hey, I'm always happy to guest. I love talking to you guys.
I hope this is the last time we see you, sir, on Next Stop Everywhere.
Anytime. Just let me know, and I'm down. And I'd guest on any of those shows. So
absolutely, that's great. And yeah, thank you for all the support. You do allow us to get to play, and Charles and I have a blast every week talking Doctor Who, and we appreciate all the support you and Molly and everyone gives to us. That it's just amazing the support the Southgate family gives us. So we appreciate all of you, Martha, Molly, and yourself. So thank you.
Couldn't do it without you
much.
guys. So we appreciate you.
Well, you've been wonderful, hosting us for the past 6 years. I can't even begin to express how much that really means to both of us. Right here, getting a little verklempt, just thinking about it. But, it does mean a lot, and, we try to give you the best podcast we can.
You do an awesome job.
For like I said, a couple of amateurs just kind of winging it. But we try to have a good time.
You guys have crossed over. I'd say you're pros.
Well, I don't know. I still haven't seen those checks come in, so until I start seeing,
until I start seeing some, I don't know if you'll see any.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know, exactly. So I kind of consider myself an amateur until I start seeing those checks rolling. But
let's go, Big Finish Audio.
Yeah, come on, Big Finish.
All right.
Where's the love, Big Finish? Come on. We give you love. It's time to give a little back, right? All right.
You guys are micro-influencers. They should be paying attention.
Just putting that out there. All right. Everybody, thanks again for listening. We really appreciate you guys. We appreciate the support. Rob, we thank you so much for hosting us and for appearing here this episode. Jesse, thank you as always. You're always great.
I love it, Charles. Thank you,
Come on
bud.
back. Episode 200 of Next Stop Everywhere. 6 years in the making on this one. It's going to be great. We got 2 great stories to talk about. The Pandorica opens, the Big Bang. Lots of wonderful people to talk about this with. Zan, DJ Nick, John Takis, Christine Peruski. I don't have to talk any more about it, do I? No, of course I don't, because you're going to be there, right? So come on back next week for episode 200, and we'll see you next time right here on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
I don't want to go.